All right, students of history, it's Mr. O here today to talk to you about structure of government, structure of government and Bill of Rights, objective 3, which is why was the Bill of Rights created and what rights are protected in it. First of all, let's talk about what is the Bill of Rights. So the plan for our government is a document called the U.S. Constitution. This was our second plan for government. Our first was the Articles of Confederation. It didn't work. So when they tried to ratify the Constitution, which means make it official, there was a lot of people who said no, it gives the government too much power and it doesn't protect our individual freedoms. So those were called the Anti-Federalists. So they drafted a list of rights that they wanted protected in the Constitution. Uh, uh, so they called those the Bill of Rights, and there were 10 amendments or 10 rights that were listed and added to the bottom of the Constitution. That's what we call an amendment. When we add something to the bottom of our Constitution, it's called an amendment. Like when you get a hole in your clothing, you take it to someone who knows how to sew and they mend it. It means it's like fixing the fabric of our country. When we realize something is wrong, we add an amendment. We have a total of 27 now. So 10 were added at the beginning, and over the last 200 some odd years, they've added 17 more. So the Bill of Rights is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Say it with me. What's the Bill of Rights? The first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution. Now, why were they created? Because, like I said, some people were afraid that our individual rights were not protected. So they wanted to be protected in the Constitution. Um, Now, what rights do they protect? I'm going to try to teach you these using a hand game. Okay, so the First Amendment, Amendment number 1, protects 5 things. So what you want to do is you want to follow the hand signals that I'm doing and try to quiz yourself on them. So the First Amendment protects 5 things. So flash 5 with your hand. 1. First Amendment protects 5 things. We're going to point to our mouth, freedom of speech. Okay, it means we can say whatever we want. It doesn't mean we always should, but it means we have the freedom to. But like Spider-Man says, with great power comes great responsibility. Now point up like you're looking up at the sky, like you're pointing up to heaven, wherever or whatever God you may or may not believe in. Usually a lot of people think of like heaven is up there in the sky, so we're pointing up like when they score a touchdown, they're like, woo, yeah, yeah, buddy. Okay, so we're pointing up to the sky, so we're talking about religion, the way that you pray. In our country, you have freedom of religion. So we had freedom of speech, freedom of religion. Now we're going to act like we're pressing a button on our hand. This is called freedom of the press. Now, it doesn't mean you have the freedom to press buttons. It means we have the freedom to print words in a newspaper. We have freedom of written speech because back in the day, they made them on something called the printing press. Okay, and then we have freedom to petition. So a petition is like when you want to see a change in your government, you might write out a proposal and you get a bunch of citizens to sign it showing their support. And then when you show that to somebody who's on your city council or something like that, they see how much support there is for this, and that makes them more likely to try to pass this law or whatever that you want. Because if they don't, then they'll see how many people will not vote for them next time. And then we're going to go like this, like come here, and this is freedom of assembly. Assembly is when a bunch of people get together and maybe they want to protest or demonstrate peacefully. You have the right to a peaceful protest. So let's do that First Amendment again. First Amendment protects 5 things: freedom of speech, religion, press, petition, and assembly. All right, now Second Amendment. You're going to make a finger gun with 2 fingers. 2 fingers because that's the Second Amendment. Not like this. That would be 3 fingers, and that would be like Third Amendment. That doesn't work. So 2 fingers. We're going to go because you have the right to bear arms. Say with me, the right to bear arms, which means own guns. In our country, our Second Amendment protects your right to own guns. There are certain instances, like if you're convicted of a felony, you can't own a firearm. But other than that, you can own a gun. Now, let's get 3s on our hands, and we're going to make a little house. We'll put it over our head, and then you're going to kick out and say, "Get out of my house, soldiers." okay? And then we'll say no quartering soldiers during peacetime. So, get out of my house, soldiers. No quartering soldiers during peacetime. Now, quartering means being forced to provide shelter for, because before the Revolutionary War or during, right up leading to it, Americans were forced to provide shelter for British soldiers in their houses, and we wanted to make sure that we would never have to do that again if the government decided that they wanted to do that. So it kind of protects your privacy some way. So the Third Amendment is get out of my house, soldiers. No quartering soldiers during peacetime. You don't have to let them stay in your home. Now, number 4, you want to wrap those 4 fingers around your thumb, and it's the police knocking on the door. So go ahead and knock on the door. And this gives you the right to tell the police if they say they want to come in and they want to search your things, maybe take some of your things because they think you have something illegal. If they don't have something called a warrant, which is a piece of paper signed by a judge that says basically that the police have showed evidence that they need to come search your things, then you don't have to let them search your things. This protects you from unlawful search and seizure. Makes the police have to have a warrant. So you can wrap those 4 fingers around your thumb. It's a police knock on the door. What are you going to say? Please come back with a warrant. Okay, that's to protect you. Fifth Amendment. You're going to put your 5 fingers together like this, put them over your mouth, and go, okay, because you have the right to remain silent. Okay, that's not all the Fifth Amendment says. It protects you from self-incrimination. So you don't say something that makes you sound guilty. Because if you're ever in court, lawyers are experts on how to make things sound their way, and they have a very good understanding of the legal system. Most normal people do not. So sometimes the best thing you can do is say nothing. Okay, so it protects you from self-incrimination. It also says that you can't be tried twice for the same crime. That's double jeopardy. And due process of law. So the Fifth Amendment, you have the right to remain silent. You don't have to incriminate yourself. You get due process of law, and you cannot be tried twice for the same crime. That's the Fifth Amendment. The most famous part is you have the right to remain silent. Sixth Amendment, we're going to get our 5 fingers, and we're going to get another finger, so that's 6. We're going to tap like our watch. Like if our mom's looking at us in Walmart and we're on the toy aisle, it's like, let's go. Okay, it means hurry up. This is the right to a speedy trial by jury in criminal cases. I'm doing like 1 finger, so it's like I'm stabbing myself or something. Criminal cases. So right to a speedy trial by jury in criminal cases. It means you have the right to have a trial that happens relatively quickly, so that way if you're innocent, it doesn't ruin your whole life. You have the right to a trial by jury, which means it's not just one person that gets to decide your fate. It's citizens that are, supposed to be diverse peers, and that's in criminal cases. The Seventh Amendment, this one's easy, is very similar. We're going to tap our watch again. This one, you still have the right to a speedy trial, but this is now in civil cases. So I'm going down the V for civil. And a civil case is usually like an argument between 2 people, usually over money. Has to be more than $20. All right. Now the Eighth Amendment. We're going to make it 8 like this with our hands, like 2 little circles. Now this one is going to be our little noose. We're going to pull the rope up, put it over your head. Like if you ever played the game Hangman, that's what a noose is. So make our little 8, pull the noose up, put it over your head. Okay, and the Eighth Amendment should protect us from cruel and unusual punishment. It means the punishment has to fit a crime. We can't sentence someone to life in prison or the death chamber or something because they stole a candy bar. Okay, no cruel or unusual punishment. If you steal one of my pencils, I can't grab my pliers and pull out your toenails. Okay, that would be bad. And the Ninth Amendment, okay, we're going to make a 5. This is going to be like our little dustpan, and these 4 fingers are going to be like our little broom, so that's 9 fingers. We're sweeping up all these extra rights, and we're putting them in our pocket because these rights are reserved for the people. This basically says just because it's not listed in the Constitution doesn't mean that the people don't have that right. Okay? And lastly, the 10th Amendment, you're going to put on your fancy white waiter gloves like you're at a fancy restaurant where they pull out the chair for you and act like you're pulling out the chair. And you're going to say these rights are reserved for the states. And it means anything not listed in the Constitution as a power of the federal government in Washington, D.C. is given to the state governments. And that's why you see differences in some laws between certain states. We're allowed to be a little bit different even though we're one country because we're tied together under the common law of the U.S. Constitution. And that is the long and the short of Objective 3.